What's your experience with sleep paralysis? How many times have you had it? How intense are the episodes? Did you ever feel an evil, demonic presence in the room? Are there any ways to prevent further episodes? Many times. I would wake up, frozen. Pain and pressure on my chest. Feeling of panic. Suddenly, a dark figure would enter the room. It would stare at me, then leave. I'd snap out of it. Worst time was 3 years ago. Stressed beyond belief. Hadn't slept in 3 days. Lay down. Immediately feel panic set in. Feel the paralyzation take place. Oh no, please snap out. See the walls moving. Horror, dread. Suddenly, I snap up out of bed. Filled with absolute sheer terror. Pace around the room, watching the walls move. The air was cold to the touch. I felt like I was being watched. It was still going on for an hour. I prayed to God for help. Asked for the evil to be removed. Panic immediately went away. No joke. 100% serious. I've had some very interesting experiences with sleep paralysis. If you are interested and brave, pursue it further. It's a gateway to astral projection. My most notable experience began with not being able to sleep. I spent hours tossing and turning, but I couldn't pass out. I guess after some time I must have stopped tossing about and laid there, conscious but calm. I came back to awareness, looking down on my body, eyes closed, breathing softly. It took some time for me to realize I was, or a part of me, on the ceiling looking down at my dormant state. I began to think about the view outside my house, and I moved through the wall and was able to look out at the sleeping city at some time in the early morning. At this point I began to panic, being fully aware that this was not a dream but something a lot more abstract but real, and I was conscious but detached from my body. I had this sudden urge to go back, and I did. All of a sudden I was sinking back into my sleeping body. It felt like what I imagined, Velcro ripping apart but in reverse, and soon enough I woke up startled in my own skin. I used to have it really bad when I was a kid. 3-6 episodes per week, sometimes multiple in one night. I would see things like shadow animals, wandering around me on the walls, tall figures standing just out of the light, shadow people, actual physical looking people that were wrong, etc. Once I entered middle school though, I found a book about it in the library, and I was enthralled. I had to learn more about these bizarre things. Eventually I found a method for inducing it on purpose. I would take daytime naps, wake up at 4 a.m. then go back to sleep, and to try and force episodes to happen. It was fun to me, like a personal roller coaster, or a scary movie that you could live inside. I got to the point to where I was able to move during episodes. It wasn't much, and I was usually kicked out of it immediately. I wanted to try and talk to the demons to see what they would say, but the best I ever managed was sitting up and rasping out the noise before I was kicked out for moving. About that time the demons just stopped showing up. I would wake up paralyzed, alone. Nothing to do or see. It just became more of an annoyance than anything else. Then I just kind of grew out of it altogether. I really wish they would come back though. My life is so unbearably boring. I've had sleep paralysis on and off really bad since I was around 10 or 11 years old, 25 now, and I still have bouts. What I have discovered works well for me is covering my eyes tightly with a blanket so that the blanket doesn't come uncover my eyes. If my eyes were left uncovered as a child, and even now as an adult, I would have a bout of sleep paralysis every night. Since this is a really transcendent feeling experience which is sometimes amazingly awesome or amazingly horrifying, I tend to try to keep it from happening, but sometimes it is awesome, but only after hundreds of times of trial and error to not just immediately freak out when it occurs. First experience was when I was around 10 or 11. I remember the close approximation because my grandfather died that year. This first experience was horrifying, and I had a tendency to go to sleep when there was still light coming in the window due to depression or just sleeping too much. As soon as I had fallen asleep this time, I immediately had my eyes snap open. I was looking out into my room, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't accomplish anything. I was frightened. Thought I had died, and that I would never wake up again. I watched as the light faded from the room slower than normal, even if just watching the sunset. As the lights disappeared, the shadows started to change and dance. Amorphous blobs would smash into other blobs, and create dynamic variable changes, and the dark moving shadows took over for what felt like a lifetime. I was freaking out in my head. I couldn't turn away. Couldn't wake myself up, and I couldn't scream, though in my head, I was screaming and it was loud. When the light returned back into the window, it started to pierce into the darkness and change the shapeless moving blobs into shape, pressing them further away from the window and defining them. My sister physically shook me awake when I finally was able to snap out of it. The worst feelings are the ones that feel as though possession has occurred, or that some entity is beginning to overlap or reside within your own. This doesn't appear to occur often, but the signs of these experiences seem to be accompanied by what feels like a warm fuzzy feeling as your muscles begin to relax. A feeling that is very similar to, say, taking up a meditation posture in Qigong of embracing the tree for a duration of a few hours, as the muscles begin to loosen up and that positive feeling sensation is invoked. I begin to feel like a coldness begin around my feet and then try to overtake the rest of me. The first time it happened, I went into some strange dream about a baseball stadium, where nothing seemed amiss until leaving, where I was on a rolling hill next to a river and the baseball players were all attacking one another with bats and generally filling the forest area with violent mess and intentions. The second time this occurred, I saw another bed opposite mine with a gossamer-like bed covering where a body lay beneath it. I tried to move and to get up, but I couldn't. What changed was my position, and the gossamer blanket seemed to be above and over me, and the wind blew through it enough that it would pitch up and down, allowing me glimpses into the world beyond. At some point the dream involved me feeling as though I got hit in the back of the head really hard, and then being held down as someone began splitting my lower jaw and dripping out the left half of it. The extreme but vivid dream-like pain was enough to wake me up.